And joining me now is my rich dad. Hi, Dad. Robert Kiyosaki, best-selling author, financial educator, and he's been a big mentor to me. I'm sure everybody knows Robert. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you for having the program.
Absolutely. Big thanks for joining me. I wanted to start off because I know you have a lot of thoughts on what's going on right now, currently with COVID. But I wanted to just share a personal story with how I started following you. So I'm 36 now, Robert. When I was 25 years old, so basically 10 years ago, someone I was with at the time said, "Hey, you should read Rich Dad Poor Dad," and I really just passed it up. I listened to her, but I didn't get the book. And then about 3 years later, um, I had someone come to me with a business proposal, and they said, listen, I really think you'd be the right guy to partner up with, but I'd like to go out for a drink with you and ask you some questions. So he asked me a bunch of questions, and he was really trying to gauge my financial IQ. And so we had a couple drinks, and he looked at me, and he was very, very forward and blunt, and he said, Carl, I got to be honest with you. I think you're the right guy to launch this with, but not right now. He said, you have no financial IQ. And he was asking me like questions like, what do you want to do with your life? And what do you want to do right now? And I was like, well, I think I'm going to go buy this bread route and I want to buy a house and, I want a little bit more stability. And he said, you have no financial IQ. So I was a little weak millennial then. I went home and cried. My emotion, I was all hurt. And my girlfriend at the time was, oh, you poor thing. And he sent me a follow-up email. So not he told me the problem, but he offered me the solution. And the solution was, Carl, again, we don't need to do this idea right away, but why don't you read this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad? So he offered me the solution to my financial IQ. I was still very stubborn and I didn't read your book. So now I'm on to the third relationship. And I was dating someone who was an entrepreneur herself, and she said, Carl, you've got a lot of passion. Why don't you read this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad? So this
Ah,
was the third time it was introduced to me. And I was a heavy equipment operator at the time, Robert. So I drove around in heavy equipment by myself. I was getting paid a decent wage. So I started downloading your audiobook and I was really educating myself on financial IQ and how to think differently and think like the rich. And I was getting paid to do that. So another thing I would do is I had another friend who was interested in the same stuff as me. So we would listen to your audiobooks. He was a heavy equipment operator as well. We'd both listen to your books. And then at lunchtime, we would call each other and we would discuss your book.
oh, great.
And I know you love that because you preach that stuff. Listen to these things once and twice, and the third time discuss them with your business associates and your friends.
Yeah,
I was doing that.
yeah.
And I stopped working for money. I started a company and I did very, very well. As soon as I started applying the things I was learning with you, I ended up getting into different investments in real estate and I did very well. So it was very humbling for me to be able to interview you today, Robert. You've changed my life. And I just want to say thank you very much.
Well, thank you, because that's the real juice. That's the real joy. That's why I do the work. The money's nice, but it's to inspire young people like you to
And
different
you have.
path in life.
Absolutely. And you have. Okay. I just wanted to get that personal story out of the way because I thought it was cool. But COVID right now, what's the date today? It is May 26th for everyone listening. What are your thoughts? And it seems like when I listen to a lot of your recent stuff, you really challenge the mainstream narrative. So what are your thoughts on this whole COVID thing?
Well, I say it's fake. Now, the reason I say that is not because I'm an expert on COVID. Okay. The reason I do it is because one of my heroes is another Canadian, Jordan Peterson. And he teaches me a lot, and he trashes the school teaching system, which I trash also. But he was talking about how a person needs to tell their truth,
Mhm.
popular or unpopular, because that's how you learn personally.
Right.
I started thinking about that. If I was just PC, politically correct, wash your hands, wear a mask, and social distance, you don't know who I am. I don't know who I am.
Yep.
But the moment I say what I think, at that, especially if it's unpopular, it lets you piss off most people, but it lets some people know, at least, and this is what Peterson says, at least they know I'll tell you what I think
Right.
versus being a fake, phony PC SOB. So I've always kind of been that way anyway. So I just tell you what I think. Like, I said, your house is not an asset. Savers are losers. The rich don't work for money. That's very un-PC. I mean, that's very PC,
Yeah.
un-PC.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm successful. Whereas most guys are phony as a $9 bill. You know what I mean? They'll tell you whatever they think is cool for you to hear.
Yeah.
They'll never be upfront.
Yeah.
And I don't want to deal with people that are not upfront with me. It's life is too short to be wondering, is this guy telling me what he really thinks, or is he telling me what he thinks I should hear to make him look better? That's people.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
that's what I say it. And I don't, and I have reasons why I think it's fake, but
Mm.
I go up front and I say it right away. Just so that you know, the rest, what else I'll tell you, is pretty much on target with what's the truth for me. And that's what I learned from Jordan Peterson.
Well, and interesting because you're obviously in a higher risk. You've had pneumonia, was it multiple times?
Yeah.
Yep. So, the narrative that they're trying to put out there would ultimately would you're the person that's supposed to be scared of this, right?
Right.
But even locally here in Ontario is our province. I think over 80% of the deaths have been in long-term care facilities, right? But you have all these 20 and 30 and 40-year-olds that are healthy and have no underlying health issues, and they're all locked down and getting checks from the government. I mean, there's going to be a cost associated with that, right?
Right.
Um, so you're interested in Bitcoin, gold, and silver. And you wrote about this in your book.
Hey.
Fake. I'd like to kind of hear what happened with your that one. I think it was the gold company in China.
Yeah, I love Canada. You guys are, uh, I went to Montreal in '67 for Expo '67. That changed my life. I've taken 3 companies public. I started in Vancouver, the Wild West,
Yeah.
and I finally went public on the Toronto Stock Exchange. And the thing I love about you guys is you're at the core entrepreneurs, unlike Americans. Americans are kind of corporate. So success in America is, are you a CEO, are you a CIO, and stuff like this. Whereas in Canada, I meet the Wild West out there. So I have so many friends in Calgary and stuff like this. In Vancouver, there are a bunch of banditos there, but I love them. They're my kind of guys. So I took 3 companies public, and one was a gold company in China, and that was our most successful float. We got the gold company for nothing down. We got it for free on the agreement with the Chinese government that we would take it public on Toronto TSE, which
Mhm.
did. We floated it for 27 million, and when we started drilling, we struck gold. It was the biggest gold mine in China, and nothing wrong with the Chinese people, but the CCP, Chinese Communist Party, not the most honest people on earth. They're worse than Wall Street. So they seized my gold mine, didn't pay me for it. So
Wow.
I wrote about that in my book, Fake Money, Fake Teachers, Fake Assets. And the Chinese banned it. But just like the people who are banned from YouTube.
Yeah.
And, it's BS. So I was just in China last summer, and I was speaking, and I'm getting censored left and right.
Really.
It's getting America, especially like New York and California, are getting to be more like communist. Hawaii is already communist. I mean, they
Yeah.
call it the People's Republic of Hawaii. You're afraid to speak out. And so that's why I asked you. So just let me say what I think about COVID,
Mhm.
because I want the freedom to say what I think. Or
Yeah.
in America, it's the First Amendment, freedom of speech and freedom of assembly. So
Yeah.
what they do, they social distance, they make you wear a mask, and it's just taking away our freedoms. So that's why I love your fellow Canadian, Jordan Peterson, because he speaks out. And we
Yeah.
need
He does.
to speak out. I don't care if you're right or wrong, just speak out. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, have a voice. I know a lot of I network with a lot of people, and I'm a very forward and blunt guy myself. That type of personality isn't very easy for people of the PC category to deal with, but it is what it is. Um, Can we talk about that company that you, the Argentine company? I think was it the silver asset that you took public?
Yeah,
How was that? That was a success.
yeah, that was a that was my the Chinese took my gold company, where oil company in Portugal. And everybody says, "But I learned so much." The people said, "There's no oil in Portugal." I said, "Yeah, but now we know." you know, but I'll tell you the lesson I learned from the Portuguese deal was that we're going down, 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 and we're getting calls, and the share price of our little was called L'Oreal was going up, 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 up on the TSE.
Yeah.
Suddenly, it crashed. What, what happened? And my partner, who was already 85 years old, he says, "We missed." I said, "Well, how would you know?" He says, "Because somebody on the oil rig is closer to the source than we are." So the guy on the oil rig sold.
Ah,
That's when I understand insider trading is it's the closer to the inside, and we were just a phone call away.
right. You didn't get the phone call though until it was down.
I was already on the rig, and he didn't call us; he called his broker. And so I learned about insider trading the hard way. And then my silver company was an Argentine deal, and we did very well on it, except that my stockbroker, who I fired since then, he told me to sell everything. So I sold out, and the thing just kept going. So, that's how we learn.
Yeah.
And, it's a good thing. I don't need the money. I do it for the experience, as you know.
Yeah.
The more I learn, the smarter I get. But I don't learn from my intelligence. I learn from my stupidity.
Absolutely.
I've been stupid
Um,
times.
and thanks for sharing those stories with us, because we can learn from those things, and that will really resonate with our community. Would you say that real estate is your baby? Real estate's the bulk of your wealth?
No, what most people make a mistake is that they think I'm a real estate guy. I'm really a McDonald's guy. When you read about McDonald's, the McDonald's business is real estate,
Yeah.
but it's my real business is intellectual property. So I write a book. You see, there's a book I have, a cash flow quadrant, E, S, B, and I.
Yep.
Okay, everybody knows E is employees, small S is small business or specialist, like a doctor or attorney, and B stands for brand. See, I have a brand. That brand is worth a fucking fortune. I mean,
Yeah.
because I license people to use my brand. And then with that, I lever up into real estate. I use debt. So let's say I make $1 million in the B quadrant. I borrow 4 million to buy real estate. So real estate is really about debt and taxes. So I leverage up my debt. So I take 1 million and turn it into 5 million via debt. And then I amortize, depreciate, and appreciate, all tax free. And then since I don't need money because I'm using debt and I have a brand, then I save money in the asset column: gold, silver, Bitcoin, real
Yep.
money. So I don't save the fake US dollar or the loonie and all that, or the peso or the yen. I don't need money because I can use debt.
Got it. Um, so when it comes to, just because you're familiar with it and we're dealing with COVID and people aren't paying rent, what's the real time situation with people not paying rent right now? Are you experiencing this with some of your real estate assets? Are
Yeah,
you?
we're doing pretty good though because we're pretty select, and we sold off a lot of property this summer, thank God. So
Wow.
we bought a lot after 2008, and then we trimmed it back. Not the non-performing, but the less performing.
Right.
So we got the better performing properties, and so we're collecting about 80, 85%, which is pretty good.
Yeah, that is good.
Yeah,
Yep.
but some of our other properties that we sold off were probably at 60%.
Okay. And do you think you would start accumulating real estate over the next couple of years?
Of course, I
Yeah.
mean, we're crashing. I bought in 2009 and 10. I borrowed
Right.
300 million bucks and bought the best real estate in the world. I mean, in America,
Mhm.
like apartment houses.
Yep. If you want to answer this, how many different types of businesses and partnerships are you in? Like, how spread out are you?
About 27.
Wow.
So, every time the press gets a hold of me, it's, well, you declared bankruptcy. I said, one company out of 27.
Yeah.
and it was a tactical move. I didn't have to. It was just non-performing, so I just sunk it. But they
Yeah.
so declared bankruptcy, and that's because our press, they're stupid. You can't cure stupid. Most writers are like my poor dad, highly educated poor people. Well, I said to him, I said, "Do you know there's something personal bankruptcy and a business bankruptcy?" And they don't know. I said, "I just sunk one company just because it was non-performing, but it's not a personal bankruptcy. It's a very
Yeah.
big difference."
Absolutely. And someone you wrote a book with, Donald Trump,
Yeah.
who has, executed on a strategy with bankruptcy. Often you hear, media sensational headlines about how can this guy run the country? He bankrupted a company, right? But that was a move. That was an actual move for Trump, right? Not to go down a rabbit hole in politics, but are you satisfied with Trump's presidency so far? And do you think he has a real chance at getting into a second term?
Well, I don't know, and he's a good friend of mine. I don't agree with everything he does. He says things he shouldn't say.
Yeah.
But given the choice between Hillary or Obama or Bill Clinton, we didn't have much of a choice. And this guy Joe Biden, I mean, what I know, I have a friend Jim Records who worked with the CIA. He wrote the book Currency Wars and all that. He knows the dirt on the Bidens and the Clintons and Obama.
Yeah.
They're much dirtier than Trump.
Yeah.
Well,
So
it,
he might still be your best option.
yeah, politics is a dirty game. My poor dad went into politics, and that's why I don't go there.
Yeah.
You can't. It's not worth it. I'd rather just make money and teach and talk to guys like you who said, "I read your book and I'm different." So that's good. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Politics is not about power. I don't need the power.
Absolutely. And you're always one thing that your brand and your company has in line with ours is we're always trying to educate people on how to stay in the middle and look as an investor, you need to just take in all the information and look at both sides and then you make a decision,
Yeah,
right? And
that's
that's something.
Bitcoin. What's his name? Buffett, anti-gold, anti-Bitcoin. Dalio, anti-Bitcoin. Records, anti-Bitcoin. Schiff, anti-Bitcoin. Well, why don't they look into it? That's what I do. I study it, I understand it. And once I understand it, I started investing in it. But people just criticize it.
Yeah, and they might have their own agenda. Like I don't want to mention names because it's just a hypothetical and I don't have a strong opinion on it, but there is room to invest in like Bitcoin and gold. You don't have to just say, now maybe if it's because you want to funnel all of the new money into your fund into gold and you don't want them into Bitcoin, maybe you hate Bitcoin. But at the same time, you're kind of selling out for your own personal narrative. You don't need to trash something just because you know what I mean? I mean, I don't invest in Bitcoin because I actually don't know enough about it, but I'm
Yeah.
not going to trash it, right?
The reason I like gold, silver, and Bitcoin is I'm anti central bank. I don't like the central bank is communist.
Yeah.
That's why Powell and the 900 PhDs, though, my poor dad, I don't like them controlling my money. So gold, silver, and Bitcoin are outside the central bank system. They're international money. They're real. So gold and silver are real money, God's money. Bitcoin is people's money. And the dollar and the loonie are fiat money, fake money. So that's why I kind of stay out of it. But the reason what sold me on Bitcoin is the mandate in there. They just had a halving. A halving means they cut down the number they print. So Bitcoin was cutting down the numbers they can mine just at the time the US was printing another 25 trillion, well, hundreds of trillions.
Yeah.
So, and it's not over. The US government, the Fed, has to print more money, whereas Bitcoin is cutting down on the number they can print. And it's people's money because it's actually logged on, computers all over the world. So nobody's going to manipulate like Jerome Powell and the Fed will do. So
Yeah.
that's why I think another reason is silver is the best investment because it's still 70% off its all-time high.
Yeah.
Gold is now near its all-time high of 19 US. And Bitcoin is at 50% because it was at one time 20,000. Today it's about 10,000. So
Mhm.
those are the kinds of the things I look at and I buy accordingly. I'm backing off on gold because I think the moment it goes through 19, you're going to see a climb. But I backed up the truck under 17.
Yeah.
Does that make
And
sense?
so, yeah, and the silver gold ratio supports accumulating silver at this point. Um, you know, I want to give a shout out to, and I forget the gentleman's name. It was your two podcasts ago that you did with your sweetheart Kim. The gentleman that has the macro newsletter,
Oh yeah, Duncan, Richard Duncan.
Duncan. Yeah, I thought, you know what, there's a lot of value in that because it's very confusing times for people. They don't know what's going on. But someone like him, you know, when you see the Fed printing money and all this, that his type of his macro perspective could really help you gain confidence in where you place your bet in the market. And
Right.
that's what I took from that podcast. Is that accurate?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's why I love YouTube. That's why I love what you're doing and all this because when Trump says it's fake news, it really is. The CNN is fake. Continuing negative news. You have Fox is fake. ABC, NBC in the U.S. So, and I'd rather listen to you guys because you don't have sponsors. Like the you look at all the Bitcoin. I mean, all the pharmacies they own the evening news. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pfizer, Merck, and those guys, they own the CBS Evening News, ABC, NBC, Fox, CNN. So they have to not tell the truth. Whereas I
Yeah.
stand up and I say, COVID's fake. I couldn't do that if I was on the news.
You know, you're a fascinating individual, Robert, because you really taught me about the information age and the power of it before it was really, really exploding. And now I'll give my a little bit more insight to some of my daily routine. When I wake up in the morning, I pick an hour's worth of content that I'm going to download on YouTube. And I know you say you're not tech savvy, but I pay $15 a month for a YouTube subscription. So now I can download any piece of content I want. And then I go on 2 long dog walks to clear my head by myself. So now when I'm out walking my dog, I'm listening to whatever it is I downloaded and I'm learning. I'm literally educating myself for a fee of $15 a month. And you can pick guys like Robert, Peter Schiff if you want. Anyway, there's a whole pump. There's lots of people that you can follow. But that's where people should be soaking their time and not into all this fake stuff. Like I used to be really into sports and I could tell you what trade people were talking about was going to happen before it even happened, but there was no value in that for me. So now, instead of following all this nonsense, I just consume content with people like yourself and I keep learning. And I think that's a big message that people need to understand.
Yeah, there's a great book called Miracle Morning. It's that first hour of every day. And that first hour of every day determines your whole life because it's probably your most productive time.
Yeah,
What you're doing, you're making the most out of that first hour. Then you start.
absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And then I go and start my day. Why don't we talk a little bit about pensions? Because you know, we do have a pretty large audience that would be interested in your take on pensions and where we're at right now. And you have for everybody, if you don't know about Robert's Rich Dad Radio podcast, you need to listen because he has I think you've continued on your series about pensions. What episode are you on now?
Gee, I don't even know. It just kept increasing. We wrote this book called Who Stole My Pension? There it is. It came out in 2020. And it's like one of these things, the more you find out, the more you find out, you find out.
Yep.
And it gets worse and worse and worse. So the reason I'm suspicious of this COVID or corona crisis is because the real crash took place in the shadow banking system on September 2019. And then COVID appeared in December of 2019. And then the biggest crash occurred in March of 2020. But the real crisis is not COVID, it's really the pension crisis. Because, Canada and the US have baby boomers, and our state governments have been looted by Wall Street. For example, my poor dad wanted me to fly for United Airlines as a pilot. And thank God I didn't, because the pilots for United Airlines, and most Americans don't know this, their pensions were stolen in 2006. Wall Street took it.
Wow.
So Wall Street's looting all these pensions all over the world, and that's why this book here, what is America's #1 export? toxic assets. It was the same thing that brought down the subprime markets. Collateralized debt obligations, MBSs, and all these derivatives were pumped into pensions. And Wall Street's just sucking the cash out from all these retirees, including the 401k or the RRSP. So pensions in the next year or two will be the biggest story in Canada, US, and the world. Japan is broke, highest savings rate per capita, and their pensions are empty because they put fake assets or toxic assets in them.
Yeah. Where does it leave all these people that are relying on them?
I don't know. American gridiron, they say drop back and punt.
You think the government steps in and just supports them? More of a socialism?
Yeah. So you can't. I don't think anybody. You already have homeless cities growing up all over. I don't know if you guys have them in Canada, but the homeless in Seattle and then California is massive. Hawaii is massive, and a lot of them have jobs. They just can't afford a house. So and they don't want old guys like me sleeping on the street. So they'll do something.
Yeah, but nonetheless, there's a crisis there.
Yeah.
Isn't all this stuff going to end up on my generation, on the millennials and people younger? And
yeah.
my generation needs to wake up and realize what's happening.
Well, that's why there's no financial education in schools, because if you guys knew what was happening, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing. Why would you save money when the U.S. Fed is QEing? They're printing trillions of dollars. Look at it. In year 2000, the U.S. national debt was only $2 trillion. Today, it's $26 trillion.
Yeah, it's incredible.
That's exponential. We can't sustain this, and it's only going to get worse because they still have the economy shut down. That's why I say COVID is fake. They're trying to cover up the biggest problem ever is financial.
Yeah, it's like one of your last guests there. Again, I forget his name. My apologies, but he basically said the solution to keeping the economy going is they have to print money. They have to bail people out, or we'll go into a depression. We might go into one anyways.
Yeah, we're already there.
If we lose, if people lose faith in the dollar and there's a dollar collapse, then you're going to have that, right? But well, Robert, we had you for half an hour. It's basically half an hour. It was, yeah.
Keep up the good work. You guys are the best. Thank you.
Well, appreciate the kind words, and thanks for the interview today. You have been my rich dad, and you have changed my life. So thank you very much, Robert.
I might pass this on. The best thing about studying money is the more you learn, the more you don't know, which inspires you to learn more, and the richer you get. But I've had people say, well, I'm not interested in money. Well, they're already screwed. They're going to fall behind financially.
Absolutely.
Because the more you study, the more I study, the further ahead we get. And they fall behind. And that's the biggest problem of all.
Well, I have 2 kids. They're at home, 5 and 8. And, we're supposed to be homeschooling them. So one thing I have them doing on a weekly basis is going on YouTube and watching a lot of your content. So what I have them do is I sit them and they sit there and they watch about 15 minutes and then they have to write out what they learned.
Oh, good for you.
So my kids were here and I said, do you know the difference between an asset and a liability? They would spell it out just like you did. And so that's a pretty cool thing. And lots of people can do that with their kids, Robert. They can go on YouTube and watch a lot of your content and learn. So I urge parents to do that. They control that now that the kids are at home.
Plus, we have the Cash Flow for Kids game where they can have fun learning. They don't even know they're learning,
That's correct.
And so that's the most important thing, because I just learned playing Monopoly at 9 years old.
Yeah.
Greenhouses, one red hotel. That's all I do today.
Yeah.
But I do it for the real estate. I do it for debt and taxes.
That's right. All right. Well, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much, everyone. Please like and subscribe to our handles and Robert's Rich Dad Radio. Anything else you want to leave for the people there, Robert?
Well, I'm having fun tweeting, which I never did before. I did it really half-assed, but now it's called The Real Kiyosaki. And the reason I do that is because it's kind of like Trump. I can say what I want when I want to say it. I don't have to wait. So it's tweeting at The Real Kiyosaki, and I enjoy it. It's fun.
Yeah, and he's got some really good tweets. I'm looking at one right now, the flopping Fauci changing his fastest messages. You got over 800 retweets. And the engagement on your Twitter is incredible. So that obviously steers towards your brand. But yeah, you should definitely go out and check out Robert's Twitter handle. So that's you tweeting yourself, Robert?
Yeah, I just want to piss everybody off. That's why I do it.
I love it. I love it. All right, we'll leave it there, friends. Take care of yourselves, and you know, keep up with the financial IQ, and check out Robert Kiyosaki and his catalog of books and his brand. One of my favorites. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Carl.